good evening. It's February 10th, 2026, and we're continuing our discussion collection, our Outside the Class series. It's this series from the Bible Project. It covers the entire TaNaK, also known as the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. All of those source videos are available for your review on TheDustyFeet.com in the Outside the Class section. Because the intent of Outside the Class, you'd listen to that in-class lecture first. Those will be those short overview videos. We just then expand the conversation. These, we just try to keep about 15 minutes. Make them easy to catch up on. So we're on a quest, scroll by scroll, book by book, or journey through this collection, maybe with a fun and different twist. Our hope with the Dusty Feet is to foster discussion and to help build and support communities. If you are not already connected to a community or just want to share and interact, this community has 4 primary ways to interact. 1. TheDustyFeet.com. That's our primary place to find everything. You are always free to comment. 2. Substack. Link is in the description below. It's designed around the written and spoken text. It's a place to connect to ourselves and others. 3. Facebook at The Dusty Feet. These videos and other videos are also available for comment and discussion. 4. And as always, you're welcome to send an email to bob@thedustyfeet.com. These places, they will be moderated and guidelines will be set to ensure healthy, safe discussion. And as always on The Dusty Feet, this is a place where we can safely explore the endless ways of God and the interconnection of His creation. Belief understandings may be challenged. Divine misunderstandings may exist and traditional teachings might falter as we pursue connection, context, and community with God and each other here in an environment of grace and love. Oh, and before we forget, if you do find these kinds of podcasts useful, please click that subscribe button. Those reminders, they just help you. But also, if you think these might be useful to others, that is when you click that like button, because that is how YouTube chooses to share this to more people if they wish. So in this series, right, we're going to cover the entire TaNaK, but we're going to do it in the original order of the Hebrew Scriptures. We just need to remember, these videos that we're going to be discussing, they're always just the tip of an iceberg. They are part of an entire learning series I highly recommend, and all of them can be found on the Bible Project's website. Because we're going to ask many questions about all kinds of things. The answers? We'll see. Samuel, Second Scrolls is our part 13. So one of the things that I found fascinating, especially in the context of the stories that we see, right, is how Scripture develops and plays out. Because there's a side question. Because it's probably a side question. I mean, it can be a main question. Probably most often a side question. But when did things change? When did things go from one thing to another? We often don't get an answer, or would take a lot of sub-study, right? That'd be kind of fun, though, mind you, to studying when things changed. So here we get to this wonderful description of Absalom, this third son of David, the one whose father-in-law was the king of Geshur. Well, here we get the description of Absalom. Interesting little topic. I get my hair cut every 2 weeks, right? Seems here they just go a little longer, as in a little longer in their time. So let's take a listen to the description of Absalom and maybe a little bit about his family. So we're starting in chapter 14, verse 25. Now, in all Israel, there was no one as handsome as Absalom, so highly praised. From the sole of his foot to the top of his head, there was no impairment in him. And when he cut the hair of his head, and it was at the end of every year that he cut it, because it was so heavy on him that he cut it, he weighed the hair of his head, and it was at 200 shekels of the king's weight. So Absalom bore 3 sons, and he had 1 daughter, whose name was Tamar. She was a woman of beautiful appearance. So yeah, Absalom obviously had some, and I use this term because we're really not sure, we'll just call it hair of note. Right? It doesn't say here whether it's wavy or straight, merely says that it's full. It's a lot. Even a little casual research says that's approximately 5 pounds. 5 pounds. It's a lot of weight for hair. In my long history as a hair designer, I'm very aware of all the different kinds of hair, men's and women's, and 5 pounds, that's a lot of hair. I'm not sure we really have a real grasp, a real picture for that. I mean, how would you portray in a picture of someone who had 5 pounds of hair, much less 5 pounds of hair that you're going to cut off and leave them hair? I mean, no, we have Rapunzel, right? But this is not a maiden captured in a high tower. This is the son of the king, King David. And just an interesting little thing. Sometimes we gloss over in Scripture. We give these little stories, sometimes cursory glances, and we often think it's a chance that we might miss and maybe appreciate something better, something because we just maybe don't know how to picture it. Full hair, handsome, for kids, 3 sons and a daughter. Did you notice that he named his daughter after the sister that he defended? He defended to the point of killing his older brother. That's why we're here at this point in Scripture. It's now been 2 years since that event that Absalom had come home, yet he still had not seen the king's face. So this next little story gives me pause, as in, it's one of those, it's food for thought. Because I'm not a big fan of the general statement, the ends justify the means, because I'm not a fan of the unjustified means. And yet, we have an event here that, again, like I said, gives me a little pause. But then I remember that these are the collected recollections of what people did. Not a lot of time in a lot of the time in Scripture, it does not comment on whether that decision was a good decision or not. It merely shares that recorded story. Think about it. I mean, there's a lot of stories in Scripture where we see in action, we're reading about an action, right? Hearing about an action. But we really don't get a commentary on whether that was a good or not so good choice. It's up to us, like we do here on the Dusty Feet, as they would have done in their communities. Now they get to talk amongst themselves about that decision. We get to talk amongst ourselves about that decision. This is an interesting one. Because when we get to hear the rest of the story that unfolds after this, so here's the point. Does the end justify the means? It starts in verse 28 of chapter 14. Now, Absalom lived 2 full years in Jerusalem, yet he did not see the king's face. Then Absalom sent for Joab to send him to the king, but he would not come to him. So he sent word to him a second time, but he would not come. Therefore he said to his servants, "See, Joab's plot is next to mine. He has barley over there, so go, set it on fire." So Absalom's servants set the plot on fire. Then Joab got up, came to Absalom's house, and said to him, "Why have your servants set my plot on fire?" Absalom answered to Joab, "Behold, I sent for you, saying, 'Come here, so that I may send you to the king, to say, why have I come from Geshur? It would be better for me to still be there. Now then, let me see the king's face, and if there's guilt in me, he can have me executed." So when Joab came to the king, and he told him, he summoned Absalom. Then Absalom came to the king, prostrated himself with his face to the ground before the king, and the king kissed Absalom. So yes, Absalom asked to speak to Joab. We probably today, we can see this more, as we should probably be comfortable with. Ignore rather than respond. Because We don't get the point that Joab says. He says, I don't want to come. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to see you. There's just no response. He didn't come. So Absalom, he realizes that their two farms, they're right next to each other. Yeah. So I'll just set your farm on fire and then you're going to come out. And then we have this altercation. Because, hey, why did your guys light my farm on fire? And then Absalom, he never apologizes. He doesn't even recognize what he did, what he was doing. He just delves right in onto why I want you to come here, why I came here, and why can't I see the king? There's an interesting comment that he makes to Joab also. And again, the need to pause a little bit, maybe, and ask a question that Absalom seems to be posing here as well. If there's any guilt in me, he can have me executed. So I guess there's one of those questions to ask. Is Absalom guilty of something? I think today we would tend to look at this all through different lenses, right? Where we'd have come from in our paths of life. Understanding things that maybe we've all personally been exposed to. But still, I think here in these stories in Scripture, especially in this time frame, all the actions, these are meant to be butted up against those instructions that are in Torah. That's our lens. Someday I would like to sit down with a group, talk about these points, these stories that are all over Scripture, because it's interesting to ask questions that when you look at Torah, it does give us some challenges to think about. And then what we have happening today in our world, how would we still view such activities and that behavior that we saw with the brothers and the sister, for instance, and what we would say then to be fair when we ask these many, many questions. But it seems at the end of chapter 14 that Absalom appears to be trying to reconcile with his father. I think the scarily honest thing is that this is even more disturbing because it comes from reality rather than some fictional tale that would be in a movie, where someone appears to look one way, really only have his own selfish intent at heart. He's even so bold as to invoke, I'm doing this for the Lord. And I mean, this is bold because he actually says, I'm doing this for Yod-He Vav-He, right? I'm doing this because of this vow that I made, right? That vow, it is unrecorded, but he's saying this is why I'm doing it. But I think when in truth, as this story unfolds, as these lives unfold, and scarily with mirrors in our own hands, this is ourselves. We find out that it's really, honestly, just all about him. In the name of God, too many stories in history share this tragic commonality. One picture on the outside, and still inside, that heart is exposed. It's very much another. And it's God's reputation that is being misused and abused. It's a cautionary tale to ponder for sure, and this might be a great place to leave so y'all can discuss it. So, thank you for being with us tonight on another episode of Outside the Class with the second scroll of Samuel on the Dusty Feet.